Welcome to the Coco Lesa podcast. What's going on, everybody? Malo
Adelaide, and welcome to the Coco Lesa podcast.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We had a dope Dipset intro, but we didn't use it, so we just gonna go with this regular one. It was fire. Trust me, it was fire. And that is Shoto's alone. So it's been a very interesting week for us on a lot of levels. And so what we had planned to do was jump into a second episode of the Poverty Talk, because which is pretty funny and crazy. We were like in a real weird place after we finished that episode.
Yeah, like a lot of so we agree on the same things, but our approach to these topics are completely different.
Right. So like our end of the road,
and this has always been
every
us.
aspect of life. Our end of the road is the same. How we get there is like squiggles and slides and straight lines. And so, like, we were so disjointed at the end of the last episode. We were like, oh, this is rough. We don't feel like we, like, really completed anything. And then we ended up talking to people and found out, like, a bunch of people really loved the episode. They really enjoyed getting it from, like, our different angles, perspectives, and the explanations were like...
But I guess it's kind of good that we don't, like you said, parrot each other.
Right, exactly. And I think it makes for constructive conversations because we're hashing out our views. We're talking about why we believe what we believe, how we get there, and it just gives more tone and more life to situations.
Yeah. So this week's episode we're jumping into is called Dear White People.
And initially, so we were gonna finish Poverty, but some real situations happened this week, and so, we decided to highlight, this episode is things we need to talk about. And part of it ties back into us explaining about colonization and racism and the construct of it, and how the difference is, if you feel a way towards a white person as a person of color, it doesn't affect them any other way than their feelings. But how white people feel about you can stop you from owning a home or having a job. You know what I mean? Or just what circles you're able to move in, where you're able to go, what you're able to do. It could even get you arrested. And so this became very real because there was a conversation that happened recently on Twitter for Okasan a bit, and off of a retweet of mine, and the retweet was, white people find the term white people uncomfortable because they're used to being the default definition of people. And so, in our forums, on social media, we kind of put out the question.
You alright? Oh my goodness.
Bruh, our little lady has a mean cough lately, so that's what you just heard. So we've been dealing with that. We had a doctor's office visit today. But jumping back into the episode, it was a lot around the conversation of how Balangi or Caucasians, white people of no color, like how they feel very upset and offended by being referred to as white people. And they don't like stereotypes that come along with that, which is so funny because there are so many indirect ways that Caucasians speak negatively of or about black and brown people, and it's just casual and they don't mean anything by it. And when the situation is reversed, it's actually a really big issue, even if you don't think it's an issue because how they feel about it can affect you in a lot of different ways.
And so what are we supposed to call them other than white people? Like, I didn't ever
Stephanie,
think
Darren, Jacob.
If you're referring to like an issue that, for example, structural racism, white privilege, these are all things that white people...
They don't like to be associated with those things, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And they think people should be emotionally sensitive to how those things are unacceptable to speak
It's the
of.
irony that these white people get upset over race when it's directed to them. It's just hilarious when their whole entire lives they've had the social privilege to be able to ignore race.
Since I've been at my job, I've heard the N-word used twice, casually. No one has even, I don't know, it's not even like a second thought or an issue. Like I said, it's things like these that turn into serious situations.
I don't really hear white people say the N-word much.
No.
Here in New Zealand?
No. Right, because I think there's a very strong desire to not be called racist, and so it expresses itself in lots of other very subtle ways. Like I said, subconsciously speaking down to brown people and brown women and not even understanding that you're doing it because it's just how you're accustomed to speaking to them. Or comments about I wouldn't really want to do that in South Auckland. Or,
And even when you're in positions, higher managerial positions in work or in the office, you still never... the subtle ways in which these Palangis talk to you just reinforce the structural racism that exists in the workplace.
Right. And it's like you said, the irony and why this is such a funny conversation is because when it's in their direction or something they feel strongly about, it's a major issue. But when it affects other people, it's a gorilla song. It's all in your head. You know what I mean? It goes completely unnoticed. And it's so funny because it's like having those conversations. Well, no, you're making me uncomfortable. We don't need to talk about this. You're making this a race issue. No one else has made this a race issue. We are colorblind. We don't even see race.
Exactly.
And very few people discuss the issue with the mindset and the terminology behind being colorblind. And I think Oprah is one of the people that touched on it best. And I'm not going to get too deep into this conversation because we know my love for Oprah. They don't, but you do. She's passing out. That's why she got quiet. But I think Oprah's a real dope individual. But anyway, she was talking about colorblind, and I may even slice a clip in. And she was saying, how I shouldn't have to be colorblind, and she doesn't want to be colorblind. She loves being a black woman, and that shouldn't affect her in a negative way. That is a part of who she is, and that should be acceptable in any environment. So,
yeah. So I posted about it on the people of New Zealand. How I just wanted to get a feel for how New Zealanders felt about being called white people. The majority of them were really, they're like, oh no, only racists are offended by that term. You shouldn't really, this shouldn't be an issue. Like, what else are you supposed to call us? We're white people. And then there were some others who were like, oh yeah, it's okay, but I kind of don't like it. It depends in the context in which it's used. If it's like, if you say you white people, then yes, I definitely do not like that. And then there was some others who were like, just blatantly, no, how dare you how dare you put us all into one group where of multiple
we have no experience with that whatsoever, and it's so funny. And I try and be conscious and mindful of these things, but I think I can be too casual sometimes. And the context in which I tend to use the term white people is in a Dave Chappelle context. Dave Chappelle has this poem that he did on Def Poetry Jam that he tells about being on Jeopardy, and the question that he answers is fucked up things that white people have done for 600, Alex, and it's a daily double, right? And so he's like, what civilization, what does he say? He's like, what civilization has been simultaneously given syphilis and had everything taken from them over the course of history? And Dave hits the buzzer and he's like, ding, ding, ding. And he's like, what is everybody who's not white? And Alex Trebek looks at the card and he's like, oh my God, he's right. That's the context that I tend to discuss Parlant in. But again, for them, that can be offensive whether it's true or not, because they have this thing where they don't want to be associated with things that other white people have done in a negative light, or what their ancestors have done, or even a type of treatment or behavior that is conducive to white privilege.
So I never say white people to white people.
No.
Like if I'm talking to Dave, not like Bob or whoever, I don't say white people.
Like you white people are really funny. No one does that. No one does that.
I talk it in the context of like in a bigger
another funny one for me. Like it made me think of Jim Jeffries. Have you seen his stand up yet?
No.
He has this joke, and they talk about how him and his brother went to the circus, and they saw this elephant stand up on two legs, and the elephant's name was Gunta, and his mom was super fat. And after that, whenever she wasn't around, they would refer to her as Gunta. And he was like, never to her face. And so it's just like that context, that mind, like, they're Gunta, but we don't call them Gunta. You know what I mean? We're more polite than that.
That's so rude. But I got this other comment. They were saying, oh, how would you feel if we called you brown people? Like, oh, you brown people, you black people.
You call us worse things.
Exactly. That's why I was like, history has shown that you have done much worse than...
Listen, I don't see color. Let's see who your kids come home with, and then we see how you identify with color. There was this guy that I used to work with when I worked for a fashion company in New York. He was really cool, mostly. Funny guy, genuinely nice. I guess, you say things like in a public setting, I've never had issues with him. But you could tell he kind of like was comfortable in certain situations and not in others. That's fine. This is understandable. Then one of his daughters came to work for the company, got to meet her, and that was cool. And then things started to change a little bit. And then his daughter married an engineer from Africa. And this man's life and demeanor changed completely. He was not a happy camper. Every time we saw him at office parties, he was drunk. Every time we saw him at regular work, he was stressed. And it had nothing to do with work and everything to do with this new half-African baby that his daughter was about to have. And I think, like, that's the situation for a lot of people. Like, they're cool with things, or they think they are, until
that thing comes into their life. And
in a very personal way, and then they feel different about it. And so they don't see or understand a lot of the things that don't affect them. And this is true of many of us, if not all of us, because even we had this conversation surrounding our family. Like, there were things that you got, but they didn't really affect you. But then, once you have an Afakasi baby, then you feel them and they resonate in a different way. Yeah. And I think for them, there tends to be more situations that they have never and will never experience in most cases. And then when they do, whoa, it's major. And that's why they say online so much, calling someone racist is the new racism in the white mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so white people feeling like they are being judged off the basis of their race is a very traumatizing and emotional experience. Like, tell them about the guy and the doctor came to see his daughter.
Oh yeah, there's this he's pretty popular YouTuber. I think it's Jamie and Nikki, and she's from Africa. I'm not sure where she is from in Africa, but he is a white Australian, the whitest of whitest Australians, and they have this half-caste baby, and he needed his daughter was sick. And he took her to the doctors, the doctor came to him, came to the house, and the mother was out, so it was just him, this white man, and this half-caste baby. And the first thing the doctor asked is... He
felt uncomfortable. The doctor felt uncomfortable. And so before he would even treat the little girl, he was like, listen, I just need to get this out of the way. and ask this question: why are you with this child? Who is her father,
Yeah.
and are her parents or guardians around for me to talk to before I attempt to treat her?
And he didn't know how to feel about it. He was like, this is my child. But you could tell he was really shook by it.
He had to show proof and everything, and
Yeah.
it really bothered him because
it's never been that it wasn't. No, he's always identified this as his kid, but other people don't see it from face value.
Mm-hmm.
So him coming to grips with people
thinking differently of him or not associating it messed him up.
It really, and I still think he doesn't really understand it. He's just okay, it's just this weird thing.
It affected him, and this is something we experience on a regular basis. We went to the doctor's office, and I won't vent my frustration, but I hand our daughter's passport over to the lady at the front desk, and she's like, "What's the little girl?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "She's Samoan," and I'm like, "Yeah, she's half," and she's like, "Who's Samoan?" I'm like, obviously, motherfucker. Well, if you're looking at me and you don't think I'm Samoan, let's connect the dots. I was so fucking irritated, bro. But this is just something we experience on a daily.
And something we also experience on the daily is when white women, predominantly older white women, try to touch my baby's hair. Please don't touch my baby's hair. It's so many times, and I've become a practiced expert at this, very smooth and silky with it. But I constantly have to throw my body in people's direction because so many people have had this discussion, right? About how white people tend to feel the agency to touch or be in contact with brown or black bodies when they are comfortable, but the reverse is almost never true. Exactly. And to them, it's harmless. So let me touch your hair. Let me touch your hair. Let me play with your baby. No.
But it's so really gross, and it's implied ownership.
Exactly. My baby may be a baby, but she still has personal space and
agency. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So her hair is it's tightly curled. So you don't really see that here. The closest thing to it would be Fijian hair.
Facts.
And
she's got the Fiji fro.
Yeah. Super cute. I love Fijian babies. But these white women have probably never seen this before. Rarely ever seen this.
Wish it was just Palangi. This is one issue where it's not even just... See, her hair is almost exclusively Palangi. Because people of color know not to touch.
Exactly.
But we, as a couple, me as an Afro-Latino man, our daughter as an Afro-Kasi baby, we get stared at so disrespectfully, indiscriminately, and constantly.
This was even before she was here, and it was just me and you. And we'd go out, and people would look at how does this work?
Even when you were pregnant, people would look at us and then look at your belly. And I was like, damn, bro, plotting on my kid, And so, this is a serious thing for us. So much to the point where, a lot of times we keep her covered in public. Or, I definitely make sure to keep her out of view of people because they just feel such this, oh, she's so beautiful, and we want to grope and stare and touch. And I'm like, nah, I don't give a fuck how you feel. Yeah, she is beautiful. That's dope. I'm not looking for your acknowledgement. Fuck out of here.
Yeah, and my sister Dawn, so she's someone as well, she went out shopping with Teddy for the first time.
So either way,
and
Teddy.
She was so shocked at how many times they would get stared at.
Because it's almost never just the two of us, but so people thought that she was my partner or she was with me. And so as a result of us standing, because this is my sister-in-law, you know what I mean? So we're close, so we talk, and she got angry. Because it was just the amount of people, the way they stare, the way they ogle. And it's so funny because I'm tightly coiled a lot. Because there's a lot of things I have to deal with as an expatriate. I can't pop off like I'm
Like
in
you would've
Hawaii
in New York
or in New York because I'm on a visa, and if I go to jail, that affects my visa. But I come from a place and a culture where disrespect in any capacity is not tolerated. I'm talking about where men in business suits will peel other men out of cars and run down on them and beat them up and throw hands and give hidings in broad daylight. I don't understand passive aggression. I come from a place of aggression. And so this dude tried to pull my card yesterday, and I was just really frustrated from the entire week. And he like walked up to the car window and like jumped at the car and was like, "Move your car, this is not free parking." And so I moved the car and I parked up, and then I went and had a face-to-face conversation with that gentleman, and his tone was completely different. And I really think about this in terms of her, because something that I prayed for excessively, and I'm very happy that we got, is I wanted her to have my aggression. And she is 3 months old, but she's a very aggressive little lady. And that makes me super happy. But that's also not really an environment that you can have people stare at you in constantly once you gain awareness. Because once she gets old enough to run, she's going to constantly be running up on people. You know what I mean? And it's so... But it's these experiences and these issues that if you don't go through it on a daily, you don't think about them. And it's foreign to you. And this is the point of the conversation that we're having. It's people being offended by the way they treat people and interact with people, and in a lot of cases they don't even realize or understand that they do it, and so it's not an issue until it affects them, and it has to be an issue before that, and that's why these conversations have to happen. But when it comes to guilt or frustration at feeling these things or feeling responsible for things like this, people get real hostile.
Yeah, they want to make it seem like it's not there.
It's just the way you're looking at it. You're making this about race. I didn't say anything about race.
And white guilt is such a real thing. And the amount of times that people of color have to like accommodate white guilt or like make them feel slightly better. White guilt and white feelings.
White guilt and white feelings trump actual issues in many cases.
Exactly.
And the response to both of those things is often very rampant and very strong hostility.
And this is shown in like the workplace. This is in everything. They trump our experiences. Our like legit.
There was a lady who talked about, she was a woman of color. I don't remember if she was black or brown, but she was of a darker skin complexion. And she went to a therapist, a psychiatrist, who was a white woman, and she had to stop the sessions. Because every time she wanted to talk about her feelings and issues of race, the white woman who was her psychologist would get uncomfortable and steer her away from that conversation and invalidate it because she didn't want to talk about it. And she couldn't even really get anything off her chest in a safe capacity, which your psychiatrist is always supposed to be. And so it affects us in every aspect of our lives.
Exactly. And you see that, like, that's with mental health, that's with our experiences at, like, healthcare, like at the doctors and shit like that. Because it's predominantly white people that are in these fields here in New Zealand anyway. So,
like, even our midwife experience, it didn't get okay until like the end. Like just as our daughter was born, that's when it finally got really comfortable. But like the entire time leading up to that, because we wanted a water birth, we had to change midwives like partway through, and our midwife was South African, and it was she
was white South African,
white South African, and the whole tone of how she approached everything was very negative from the beginning. You're at a high risk from this. There's a strong chance that this won't happen. So we'll keep our possibilities open. But I'm not really happy with this. Nothing was ever really said in a positive capacity. And I could tell from interacting with her, she didn't understand that she was giving off that energy.
Yeah.
And so she would honestly ask, how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? And I'd be real about it, and then she'd be like, well, why do you feel that way? And she'd be like genuinely confused. You know, and again, it's that subconscious, not even understanding how you interact with people.
I think my whole, like, what do you call it, pregnancy experience should be an episode on its own, because just the experience that I had was, I don't know, I'm not all that satisfied with it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, even the, like, from
the aftercare completely?
Yeah, from the beginning, the first segment when we were with that lady.
Mm-hmm. Weren't really a fan of her?
No, she was
okay.
But I just have this I don't know.
We tried so hard to get a midwife of color. Be she Pacific Islander or Maori, we tried to get one. And we almost had one, and she pulled out on us. And so, like, it was very hard to get the experience that we wanted. But yeah, we can do an episode on that.
It's just,
So, and that's kind of where we're at with it. And honestly, I can even say, I know it's real because I do it. I have it. Like, I hear it when I talk to or interact with people sometimes who are Indian from India. And that's because in my experience, Indians from India, no matter how dark brown they may be, often look down on other people of color, especially and including Afro-Latinos, African-Americans, black people, period. And so I have it built into me now. When I interact with them, I feel away. I can hear it in my tone. Like, I automatically get agitated, and my responses are so short. And it's not intentional, but it's just because of the experiences that I've had. And I feel like the difference is, in a lot of these situations that we're talking about, there is no one there. You may have never, as a white person or white woman, had an experience where you have ever physically or been in an uncomfortable situation with a dark person of color, but that doesn't stop you from clutching your purse every time one of them walks by. And that's the difference.
I try not to, like, cast all Indians in the same boat, strictly from, like, my 2 or 3 experiences with specific Indians at work. But there is such, I feel like they think Pacific Islanders don't work hard enough, because they are hardworking people, they really are, but I feel they think that we just haven't done enough in our lives.
They feel like there's laziness?
That we're just on the benefit. I don't know, like, there was this one outrageous comment I heard my co-worker say. He was like, there's too many Pacific Islanders in Auckland. And I'm like, are you serious? There's, like, how many of you in the world? Is there a billion of them? There's, like, millions of them. We barely make up.
And so, even though the title of this episode is Dear White People, part of the issue that we're addressing right now, especially in talking about our experiences, and even today, we were at the doctor's office because she's got the cough, and there was a Maori woman who's disabled, and she is an athlete, and her coach was another Maori woman, and her coach almost killed her love for the sport because she was disabled and she was biased against her or discriminated towards her. Albius, she treated her so bad. She used to talk down to her really bad and tell her she didn't work hard enough and she didn't want to learn. And she was like, she wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's like, no, she's Maori and she's a woman. There has to be good in her. She has to be really trying to help me. Maybe I'm just not trying hard enough, until it got so bad that she quit the sport for a little bit. And I think we all kind of do this. We want to believe that because other people are people of color, that we're on the same page and we're on the same team. And you have people from your same race that hate themselves and hate you for being like people of color.
Dr. Umar Johnson on that show.
Yeah. When we talk about coons and people at soft shoe and people that are white supremacists even though they're black or brown, because they're so devoted to whiteness and what they want to be and what they've been taught to feel good towards, that it breeds self-hatred in them for themselves and them people.
But they don't realize that.
No, they don't. And this...
That's the saddest part.
It is sad. But the other thing that we have to acknowledge in this conversation is it is not affected by intelligence at all. Because you can be extremely intelligent and still be super racist towards your own people. Exactly. And have these views. And a lot of times people think, oh no, it's just ignorance. They don't know enough. They haven't learned. It's not an educational issue at all. You can be super smart and really dumb about these topics. And I speak from experience on this because there's a lot of things I had to learn to understand. Wow, you have really ignorant beliefs. And then I had to grow past that and get past the shame I had felt for the life I lived before I understood certain things and didn't even know how racist I was. And so, I don't know, I think we're good there. You have anything else you want to add in on this episode?
So just to recap, dear white people, don't be offended by the word white people.
Yeah, no.
When we say it's not in malice, it's just
it's descriptive. And you can be upset by that description, but I think a better thing to look at is the description accurate?
Yeah.
You know?
And you need to evaluate your own life and understand really why you are upset about it.
And look at it in a constructive way, as we are often coached and expected to do.
And dear brown people,
you
stop
can be
writing for these white people.
But no, so other than that, I think we also just really want to say thank you, because our listenership continues to grow. The website will be coming soon. We will be linking information to that. We will have Coco Lesa t-shirts for sale. We will be posting pictures on the social this week coming up of the t-shirts, because they look amazing and we're really happy with them. So we're looking forward to having that available to you guys. And thank you for joining us. Like, we really appreciate how much our listens have jumped in the U.S. everywhere. We appreciate our core following. You know what I mean? In the Pacific, we love you. Aloha too. So yeah, like, thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.